Hello and welcome everyone to this unusual video. Today we are going to talk about some cultural commentary because something just happened that is truly, truly important. And it's way more important than most people actually think. In fact, the Sydney Sweeney campaign, the reaction to it, but more importantly, the design and architecture of the message is not just an unwoke ad that creates the response you would expect. It is actually much, much more, and in my opinion, marks the beginning of something truly remarkable and big. So let's go right into it. Let's start with watching this new ad, and maybe you have heard about it, but let's watch the ad and some ads after that so you see the whole campaign. Only takes 1 minute and 20 seconds. And I tell you, this is truly remarkable. So let's jump right into it. Here is the famous ad.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has very genes. Sydney Sweeney has very genes. Sydney Sweeney has very genes.
And now for good measure, I want to show you this last little snippet of ad that I found. And it's very interesting. Just watch it. I will comment on it later.
Hi, I'm Sydney Sweeney, and I'm from Spokane, Washington. I can work as a local hire as well, though, and I'm available for the American Eagle Jeans campaign shoot.
Profile and hands, please. Thanks. We'll be in touch.
Sydney Sweeney has very genes.
So let that sink in what just happened here. Let's watch the first ad one more time. It's very short.
Genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. My genes are blue.
Sydney Sweeney has very genes.
So that's what you have to basically remember. She elaborates on genes, what genes are. They pass down, physical traits, including hair color and eye color. Then she turns her face to the camera and says, my genes are blue eyes, you understand. And then the narrator says, Sydney Sweeney has great genes. And then the last ad in the series shows her doing a casting. And then, the guy says, show your hands back and forth and then profile, which is like absolutely referring to her physical traits. And then they end, Sydney Sweeney has great genes. So why is that so important? Hey, creating these videos is a lot of work. Please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. Now let's get back to the video. So first of all, as you can imagine, the backlash is exactly what you would expect, right? It's exactly what you would expect. On TikTok, everyone has a meltdown. Not everyone, but the usual suspects, right? There is a woke meltdown over this, where people say this is fascist, she's a Nazi. The usual stuff you would expect. Why is this a remarkable pause? Not because of the backlash. We hear this basically every time anyone does something normal. It is so remarkable because this ad is actually not normal. It is not normal because it's not an ad you would see in the 60s or 70s, where it's just a healthy, nice, white family having barbecue with 3 kids, which normally evokes the backlash of the woke crowd. This here is a pretty aggressive troll. That's what we need to understand. Whoever designed this ad didn't think, oh, she's pretty, let's put a pretty girl on instead of the ugly girls we put on before. In the woke times in 2019, I'm going to show you something in a second. No, they didn't do that. They didn't just take Sydney Sweeney, put something sexy on her to make her look very hot and said some generic thing. They absolutely, consciously, purposefully focus on physical traits, being blonde, being blue-eyed, and then rub it in our faces with the slogan, Sydney Sweeney has great genes, and she literally says, I have blue genes, meaning clearly with genes her eye color, because she says that before. So I just want to emphasize how important that is, because that is not just a normal unwoke ad. It is clearly an aggressive troll action here by the company. And just to show you where American Eagle was a few years ago, we have this here, I show you this ad. American Eagle was completely woke. It's not that they were a great purveyor of unwokeness. This is an ad that they had in 2019. That's how American Eagle looked like that. I mean, this girl probably, I'm not going to say it if she has great genes or not, but if she has great genes, she clearly messed them up by a very bad lifestyle. And that is what's happening now. So American Eagle went 180 degrees here, and it's pretty astonishing. Most importantly, why is it so important? Look at what happened to the stock. You probably have seen it, but look at what happened to the stock when they launched this. They launched it a week ago. And this is what happened to the stock. The stock went up nearly 30% from $10.48 in one day to, what was it here, to $13.23. That is nearly 30% in a day because of this ad. It was the same day they launched the ad. Since then, it has retreated a little bit, but the company is up 7.76%, which is roughly, $140 million in market cap because of this ad in a couple of days. So the market loves it. And when I look at the greater situation of where we are at with culture and everything, I can guarantee you that American Eagle is the hot brand of 2025. People will flock to that brand now because it is doing something everyone wants. Everyone wants to be hot, and everyone thinks Sydney Sweeney is hot. And everyone thinks, just to be clear and speak the truth here, everyone thinks she's hot because the way she looks like. She's blonde with blue eyes, and people like it in girls. Not just random people, the vast majority seems to like it. Don't ask me why, it's just what it is. And by actually pointing that out, not in a very indirect or not explicit way, but in an explicit way, for some reason in the moment of time we are in, that is being rewarded way above and beyond the attractiveness of the ad. This is about the messaging. So political messaging can work in ads if it resonates with the times. And that is the indication that it does resonate with our time. Very, very important to observe for us who want to understand what's happening in society, in politics, and in the capital markets. Why does this go beyond just a little pushback against woke culture? Because the level of taboo breaking we see here is like completely unparalleled, I would say, in the last 80 years. This is a full frontal attack on the post-World War II consensus. Let's be clear, it's a complete and full frontal attack against the post-World War II consensus, what this is. Because the post-World War II consensus, just to put it in a nutshell, you can look it up on YouTube. There are more and more videos on this, by the way, very interestingly. We all lived, someone put it very elegantly. They said, the problem is not that we live in a giant world conspiracy, because that's always like, whatever, conspiracies. No, they say it's much worse. It's not a conspiracy, it's consensus. There's consensus formed after World War II about a certain set of principles that cannot be questioned and are complete taboos. Because the people who went through World War I, the phase in between, and World War II, were so traumatized by these horrible catastrophes that they said that can never happen again. And they started attributing the causes for these wars to a bunch of things, right? Of course, they were not totally correct in what they did, but no one cared. They just wanted to make sure it never happens again. And so they went against certain pillars and principles of the previous phase in a very radical way, actually reflected by Karl Popper and the Open Society and Its Enemies, a very important seminal book he wrote in the 50s, I think. And that became one of the leading philosophical pillars of the post-World War II consensus. There's also the Frankfurt School, cultural Marxism, all these things that just ran wild and have formed that consensus we are living in. And that consensus is, if you're white, you cannot have your own thing. You cannot just say, "Ooh, white pride" or something. That's the biggest taboo ever. If you say that, you get not just canceled, you probably go to jail. Like everything is pointed against that. That leads then to diversity, to open borders, to a forcing function towards open borders. Feminism is another thing. You can't just say, oh, the man should be in charge of the household, the woman should stay home and have many, blonde children or something. If you say things like that, at least until now, that is what I'm pointing out. If you said anything of these things, you are completely and immediately a pariah. You are bad, bad, bad. You are bad beyond repair if you said that. Between 55 or whenever it started and 2025. And you all know what I'm talking about. Like you got canceled for things that were way, way less than what we see in this ad. And so the debate, whether it was smart to say everything, that focuses on European pride and, whatever, all these things, the question if that should be prohibited or is super bad, or if it's super good and should be promoted, that's not the topic of this video. I'm not going to go there, not in this situation. And I don't care right now. I'm talking about this as an analyst who tells you, I think we can all agree that these were complete taboo topics. And we can all agree that they were not taboo topics in the 1930s, 20s, and any time before. So there was a cut after World War II, where our societies culturally decided a bunch of things need to be tabooed, need to be outside anything that can be discussed, cannot be investigated which pieces are true of these things, scientifically true, for example, and which things are wrong. Also like race comparisons and IQ, or there was research at Harvard and Yale done, and that was completely buried because it was taboo. You were not allowed to talk about it. And if you went through a World War II, probably for good reasons, you were so traumatized, like, I don't care if it's true or not, we cannot allow this to happen again. And we believe these things were responsible for it, so let's bury them. But people got a little tired of it. And we live now in this very interesting time where this consensus clearly has cracked. And just from an analytical point of view, I tell you guys, the repercussions of that are completely enormous. Because you and me, we are not even aware of all the things that are functions from that consensus that surround us in our everyday culture, our movies, in our news, in the entire way society is structured, in feminism, family formation, fertility rates, and of course, the big one, politics. So my point is, this ad, I'm pretty sure, will go down in history as a breaking point. It will go down as a breaking point that marks the end of World War II consensus. You see many other little things popping up. And it's like these subtle little things, or maybe not so subtle little things, that we see right now. I want to play you one more thing just to show that this is not just Sydney Sweeney, but that there is a whole thing going on. Here's Billie Eilish, in, I always forget I think she or he, I don't even know. Like this person, I think transitioned, but I don't want to talk about that right now. But that person is now in Ireland giving a concert. And look what he said.
Well, as you guys know, I'm Irish, so it's cool to be here. I am not from here, obviously, but it's really cool to come somewhere and like everybody looks exactly like you.
So Billie Eilish, and I tell you, this is also not completely random. People say, oh, Joe, you're just picking random stuff, No, it's not random. Billie Eilish says, it's really cool to come somewhere and everyone looks exactly like you. And, I also see on YouTube, I just posted on X about it, on YouTube suddenly the censorship is going away. So in my feed, for some reason, and I didn't click on many of them, it was suddenly in my feed, I see this guy Nick Fuentes all over the place. He's very strong on X, but suddenly on YouTube seemed to have removed that censorship thing. And now Nick Fuentes is all over the place. And Nick Fuentes says a lot of things you're not supposed to say. And I'm not saying I'm agreeing with him, but it's interesting that he's even allowed to be served in my YouTube feed. And if it serves to me, it must be served to tens of millions of people. Then there's Tucker Carlson, and I forgot his name, this historian. They talk about Churchill being the bad guy of World War II. Always said, oh, one of the bad guys. I mean, Hitler was also bad. But just talking about World War II like that is a complete violation of the taboo. Even asking these questions, oh, did Churchill maybe do bad things? And again, we need to be smart. We need to build pioneer land and predict the future. So it's very important that whatever convictions you hold and you're thinking, I'm very aware that all my perceptions of all these things are shaped by the consensus, right? So I'm just observing that with a lot of curiosity and very critically. But the fact that suddenly all across the board, these things are happening, and now American Eagle, a super consumer company, comes in and does that kind of ad, tells me we live in a true transformative, Zeitenwende, and something that is a change of the spirit of the times in a very big way. Now, what does it mean for us in politics, in capital markets, and so on? What can we learn from that, and how can we benefit from this? Like, what's even happening? Well, let me address very quickly just three things, the three important things we are in pioneer lands, where we prepare for the age of AGI and prepare for the future, what we can learn from that. First of all, implications for capital markets and brands. Well, it's very simple. Once you have an ad like this and the stock price reaction, and I can mega predict that American Eagle will be the hot brand, their sales will go through the roof because of that. Because Gen Z loves this kind of stuff. They love that now everyone wants to cancel them. The rebels are in full force, come out swinging now and say, well, if you want to make something taboo for me, I'm done with you, and I'm just going to double down and buy more of it. So Gen Z is getting very rebellious. And that will lead to other brands copying this. And of course, the big ones. So there are small effects like the resurgence of all American brands, in my opinion. This is very good for Mustang. You see the Ford Mustang. It could be good for Chevrolet, for Chevy, if the companies, building these cars wouldn't suck so much, but these brands will be charged up. I think Chevy and Mustang and all that stuff, there could be new Americana. If Tesla would buy Mustang, they should do that and build a super Mustang. Everyone would buy it. So, these brands, Abercrombie on the fashion side, I think Abercrombie was completely destroyed in the woke era. Some say because of a sexual harassment problem of the CEO, but I think much more because of what Abercrombie stood for. And they got destroyed, I think, in 2017 or something. They could have a huge comeback if they switch their campaigns back. Levi's, so all the fashion brands will now probably copy that American Eagle thing. The big ones I'm waiting for, but I don't know what's going to happen. But the big one of the greatest opportunity in this post-woke world that becomes a little bit more than just post-woke with what we see here, is of course Netflix and Disney and Paramount. Like, if these guys, the first of these guys who starts doing edgy movies, imagine you would have movies and TV series that start playing with these themes. Oh my God, you would have one blockbuster after another. You would make billions and billions if you escape the woke paradigm, especially if these movies would be controversial like this ad. And so it's capitalism. It's just a question of time before one of the big directors has the guts to say, you know what, I don't care. I want to make a $4 billion blockbuster. And I know how, by just doing these kinds of things, but in a bigger movie setting. So this is just going to happen because the market demands it, which will be another huge milestone. And so I think on the cultural and fashion side, we will see a lot of repercussions here. And we will see a lot of copycats that can really go into much bigger things. Next topic, politics. I think it's very interesting, and I want to go here first, zoom in from global Western Hemisphere politics. I think in the US, it's just a confirmation of the Trump train, and this direction will continue and get stronger. But what we also saw with the latest visit of Trump to Europe, von der Leyen and Starmer, Trump talked actually about Germany quite a lot. He understands that Germany is a central pillar, or the central pillar of this whole thing. And in Germany, there is currently an interesting debate. I didn't cover that, but let me know in the comments if you would like to know more about that debate. There's something called the IB, the Identitäre Bewegung, Identitarian Movement, which is a new right, young movement that tries to, get these old values up again and say, like, we should be proud patriots and all kinds of stuff. And they are considered in Germany also complete pariahs. I think Europe-wide, maybe not so much. And the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, which is the big, opposition party that is also new right, struggles with their relationship to this movement, to this youth movement, because the established parties say to the AfD, oh, these are total Nazis. You can't do anything with them. Of course, they're definitely not Nazis, but you know how it is. It's wokeness. And the question of the IB, what they are, we have to look into that. But the AfD, there are some tendencies right now because the AfD is so big that they're the biggest party now in Germany. They try to, make themselves as digestible as possible to mainstream. And they are considering cutting ties to IB. Now, this ad is very interesting because it points into the opposite direction, potentially, culturally, what you should do. The question is, for me as a quantitative analyst, what we see with Sydney Sweeney and American Eagle is clearly an American trend. This is happening in the US. Is it also happening in Germany, or is there a lack? And if the lack of this cultural switch is 6 months, well, then the AfD should react accordingly. But if it's 2 years or 5 years, it would be dangerous to react to it because it's not true yet in Germany. And I'm talking about Germany because, wherever Germany goes, Europe goes. It's very simple. Europe will follow Germany. So we have to observe what's going on there. And this is a whole different video. The question, how much is Germany in these cultural topics now synced with the United States? How much does it lack? Is it synced at all? Is it in real time? If something big like this happens in America, is it also true in Germany? There are lots of observations that the lag time has been reduced dramatically thanks to Elon Musk and his involvement in German politics, thanks to a lot of German new right influencers posting in English, which is a big change because before that the Germans didn't like that. Now they, from Martin Sellner at IB to Naomi Seib and all these people, they are starting to do more and more English posts, which I think is very good because it syncs these two spheres and accelerates everything. Because now Americans can see what's going on in Germany and Germans can read what's going on in the US. So there's a lot of syncing going on. So the big question is, while America is pretty much done with this and they're now moving in this direction, I think the dam has broken. The question is, what's the lag for Europe? And that is the big question. And I think the lag is much shorter than people think. And that would have tremendous influence on the tactics of the European right and how they react to it. Also of the European left, to be honest. But I don't know exactly what their plan is. They don't have a good plan right now. And finally, what are the impacts for us in Pioneer Lands, age of AGI? And I want to wrap it up here. But the takeaway is don't underestimate this ad. Don't underestimate what this demarcation line is that is being created here. It's the end of the World War II consensus. That means now what's coming next is not clearly defined. Because the same way the post-World War II consensus was not clearly defined when it started to happen. It was people having maybe good intentions, maybe bad intentions. No one will ever know, like Karl Popper and others. And they wanted to avoid this from happening. And then they did a bunch of things and they had no clue where this would end up. And it's very similar here. We just know, okay, this is a huge, huge shift. We don't know how this ends up, but we do know we are in a time now that overlays with the singularity and the force multiplication we experience with AGI in society that is now on a cultural and political level also happening for totally different reasons. Maybe these things are all interconnected. Maybe the Sydney Sweeney thing is a function of X creating free speech. Maybe it is a function of people getting very smart with AI and suddenly making up their own minds and being actually harder to control because they have all their AI assistants that they can also ask cultural things and historic things. Who knows? But for me, these are independent trajectories that are coming together now. There's a huge disruption economically happening with AGI, an enormous disruption as we speak that will go on steroids next year and shift everything economically. That will have huge ripple effects politically. And now we are seeing out of left field coming this whole cultural disruption. And if you overlay these trends that we have extreme force multiplication through AGI, extreme economic disruption, in a good and bad way at the same time, that you can make billions now in a year if you know how, but you also will lose your job very soon. So this comes together. And then culturally that people triggered by things like Sydney Sweeney's ad will rethink everything. They will question everything. The cat is out of the bag now. People will just question everything, all the assumptions. And that creates, I think, for us as pioneers, a beautiful opportunity to actually freshly and independently rethink the future and create new frameworks of reality engineering. Because the worst thing for reality engineering, for imagining the future and then shaping it, the worst thing is a stupid consensus that is wrong, that stands in the way. The best world is a world that is highly flexible without consensus. Because in that world, we can freely act. We can imagine, we can think, find true first principles without some distortion from either side, left, right, center, whatever. I don't want to have distortions. I want to seek the truth. So I think it's very beneficial for us as reality engineers and pioneers that the cultural corsets are being removed now. And that we can freshly rethink what the hell is really going on. And with that, find the truth faster. That's why I'm always supportive of Elon Musk and his mission to create the maximum truth-seeking AGI and, a free speech platform. I think all of these things are coming together very nicely. And I will keep watching this cultural disruption and the political repercussions in Europe. I hope that was interesting. This was a little cultural commentary, but sometimes it's very important. This was an important piece of information. And I hope to see you very soon.